But tonight we're here to celebrate and explore the Guildhouse Fellowship. The Fellowship is our flagship professional and artistic career development program. Each annual opportunity, valued at $50,000, is aimed at supporting a mid-career visual artist, designer or craftsperson to deeply invest in their career. It really truly is a meaningful and transformative experience that offers quite a rare opportunity in this country to focus at the centre of one's career. We do this in terms of supporting professional sustainability. Tonight you're going to have the wonderful chance to hear a lot more about the Fellowship from our panellists and how the Fellowship provides a platform to reflect, to explore, and how it can boost your visual arts career. It supports experimentation and it provides time for you to focus on your practice as a holistic practice. At Guildhouse, we're incredibly grateful and inspired by our like-minded partners, and we really want to thank them for making the Fellowship possible. First of all, I want to extend and acknowledge our thanks to the James and Diana Ramsay Foundation for its deep recognition of the value of arts here in South Australia and their very generous support to fund the program. This 2023 fellowship opportunity is the fifth of a commitment of six, and it's wonderful to see our growing alumni in this space. Huge thanks to the Art Gallery of South Australia for partnering to create and to deliver the fellowship. The gallery provides vital connections, a professional sounding board, fantastic resources and a rich collection to inspire you, and a wonderful place in which to present. We absolutely value your genuine collaboration to create and sustain opportunities for artists. And it's wonderful to have here tonight a really full house and to welcome current and past fellows. Welcome Troy Anthony Baylis, our inaugural 2019 fellow here, coming to us from Turrbal Country in Brisbane tonight. Sera Waters, 2020 fellow, celebrated at the gallery with your presentation outcome earlier this year. It was wonderful to be there, my first week being part of the team. Fleming, current 2021 fellow, whose magnificent new works will be launching for the public to see on the 1st of September as part of the First Fridays program at the gallery. Really excited to also see Tom Phillips here tonight, our current 2022 fellow, who's deep in his research and making phase. Welcome to our partners from the Art Gallery. Thank you for joining us, Elle and Ingrid, and really importantly, thank you, Emma Fay, Assistant Director of Operations. Of course, you need no introduction to this wonderful Guildhouse Fellowship crowd. We at Guildhouse thank you for your incredible long-standing contribution to Guildhouse, and really want to acknowledge, your innovation of bringing the partners together to instigate this incredible opportunity.
Long may it continue.
Yes, it is. And it's just wonderful to continue to work collaboratively with you and with the Art Gallery. A couple of key housekeeping notes. Thanks everyone for turning off your mobile phones. We are filming the session so that you can have that as a resource to reflect on while you're putting your applications together, so that we can share it more widely with others who can't be here tonight. And we will be uploading some highlights from tonight's conversation to the Guildhouse Instagram account. One of the things we love about being here at Sturt Street is the opportunity to connect, to be inspired, and to actually witness the incredible talent and the making of art through the studio spaces that we're here co-located with. I just wanted to let you know, as you all know, it's getting very close to Sala and there are tight deadlines, and Jess and Christy are busily making for their own exhibitions. So if you hear some knocking on the wall, that's just creative ambience for tonight. I think that's probably almost enough from me. The toilets are through the door, around near the food. Tonight, Emma's going to lead our three panellists in conversation. You're also welcome to stay on for a little while afterwards, enjoy some of the catering around the corner. And What else do I want to say? Check in with Sam to make a one-to-one appointment. Applications are open till the 21st of August. Over to you, Emma, and wonderful panellists. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Is this mic working okay? Beautiful. I could not be more delighted to be here tonight because it's pretty special to have been part of this incredible community of arts practice, of working with all of you and working with the incredibly tireless arts workers and dedicated professionals that make up the Guildhouse team, both past, present and future, because it's a constantly evolving space. It's a membership organisation. And to be here representing the Art Gallery as a key partner in the Guildhouse Fellowship program. And I think we should just dive straight on in. I'd really like to start by asking each of the Guildhouse Fellows to spend just a couple of minutes, rather than me introduce each of your practices. If you don't mind, it'd be really wonderful if you could each, just in a minute or so, just give a little high-level overview of your practice, and particularly maybe something that has shifted for you in the course of the fellowship. So we might start with Troy Anthony, just because he's on my far left. But I think that would be a really lovely place to start, and then we'll get into some of the nuts and bolts, I think.
Okay, and can people hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Somewhere? Yeah, great, good. Because I can see some of you, yeah. So, my work is, I guess I've been going for 30 years, my 30th year, and I really work across everything from parade floats to textiles, painting, collages, but really the main thread of my practice is really textiles, and that's mostly, I guess it's knitting and weaving mostly, and subject matter also varies, but it's in a sense it could be related to identity, but it's also other things. As as human beings, of course, we all relate to each other in some ways. So even if I'm making something that comes from a private or personal place, I certainly know it is relatable. So I'm not going to worry myself over that anymore. These sort of negative tropes that we sometimes, get inherit from the community that we're in and part of. And in terms of what's shifted, I guess what's shifted for me is, and it's not, in part it probably came with a time that was probably a midlife crisis time. So it's really been in many ways it's felt like a complete rejuvenation. And that would be certainly stimulated by the Guildhouse Fellowship, but I think that amongst kind of 2 or 3 other kind of major whammies that all kind of happened in a row, and the Guildhouse Fellowship being kind of the second one, and that kind of so I guess the main shift is I think a lot more about the internal external, probably sometimes kind of dangerously so, I think, because it's quite heavy. But in any case, I think the work's coming out stronger for it.
Mm. And Troy Anthony, you also made a pretty significant shift at the time that you applied for the fellowship. You did so with an intention to transition into a full-time arts practice, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I possibly didn't pick the best time in recent human history to be full-time. So, and without skipping, but I'll kind of quickly say it now, we can get back to it, but it's that idea that, I'm on the front cover of a magazine at the moment. I'm in Brisbane, so I'm an institutional solo show. But that idea about what success is, and this perceived, it's obviously at a time at a pandemic, it's going to be very, even post-pandemic, I feel it's going to be very difficult for visual arts. So we need all the support we can get. And even I know most of you would get it, but even some people in our community would think, oh well, this is success now, and it's still way under the minimum wage. It's less than the dolls. So I know I'm all dressed up in gorgeous clothes, but they are choices, Yeah.
Thank you, Troy Anthony. Liam, can I throw to you to just give us a little intro and make comment on that?
Thanks. I guess coming to this fellowship with 10 years, 11 years under my belt as a glass blower, really. I guess I think of myself pretty strictly as a glass blower, glass artist. I'm sure I use a lot of other materials to make my work, but it comes out as glass. Like a few ideas, sure. I guess a lot of my work has been around this idea of relinquishing control and kind of questioning, you know, your own mastery of the material, which is a strange thing, I think. But in this whole fellowship time, it's kind of about regaining that control. And I don't know, I feel like that's how I'm going to stay.
Go, Sera.
So yeah, I guess I applied for the fellowship when I was maybe like Troy Anthony at a crossroads in my life where I wanted to pull back a little bit from other work, and I thought if I don't fully dive into my practice now, then it's going to be too late. So, but I guess it came about at that point alongside COVID. I'd just come out of, I'd finished a PhD a few years before, and so I'd done international travel. So for me, it was, you know, really a time to dig deep in my research practice. And what I wanted to research, more so coming out of a long period of reckoning with my own settler colonial ancestry, was kind of reckoning with the damage that's been done in the future that we have. So I wanted to spend that time, and I directed my application towards looking at textile practice as a hopeful avenue or alternative pathways, or whatever we can kind of, you know, from the expert knowledge that people have in the textile industry, how we can use that to go forward. Yeah, but on top of that, you know, lots of other bows, academic side, and lots of balancing in my life. So there was a whole lot of things, and not that came together for my fellowship.
Anything particular that shifted for you?
I think it actually struck me right from the beginning, the profile of the fellowship, that it garnered attention interstate immediately, and that was one of the kind of avenues of my application, was to try to build my profile beyond South Australia. So that happened immediately, and that was quite surprising, and that grew into multiple opportunities. So yeah.
Would you like to talk a little? Just going to go with the flow, and then we can. And I really want to hear from you also about the things that you want to be hearing from the panelists tonight. So it's less about me having a really structured idea of us talking about specific topics, but keen to take lots of questions from the floor in a minute. But Sera, while you're on that topic, could you maybe talk for a little minute about some of those things that have happened over the last maybe 12 months or so?
Yeah, so I think there was a profile piece in Art Collector when I got the fellowship, which then I found out was an image from there was pinned on the wall of Powerhouse that turned into a commission for an artwork for Eucalyptuston, a show at Powerhouse. And, you know, simultaneously to that, I was asked to be in the Adelaide Biennial, and I know that came also directly out of the fellowship. And then, much to my surprise, a visiting curator came from Korea and saw my work aligned with the Busan Biennale theme of We on the Rising Wave, which was looking at colonial histories across the world, really, and ports, really. So if anybody saw the sails in the Adelaide Biennial, they really lent themselves to travel. So it was really one thing after another. And you know, when you hear that I was the 2020 Guildhouse Fellow and my show opened at the end of last year, it's because they were so understanding with all of those extra deadlines and letting me push it back a little bit. So there was that flexibility there that I really appreciated to really address those aims that I've set out in my application.
I think we might just follow that thread actually, because I think that's a really good point to emphasise with the fellowship, that there is not a preset. I've lost it.
Closer.
Closer?
Yeah. I've literally kissed mine. Okay. Sorry, everyone's been listening over. The time frames and the deliverables, the outcomes are actually very much driven by you, the artist, and that stems from the very minute the application starts. So I would really like to kind of go into that a little bit more, because I think that's really pertinent to any of you in the room who are forming your applications and your ideas. the fellowship application is very different from a grant application. It's very different from a project application. And sometimes that raises lots of questions for people because we're very used to, in our industry, in producing things to meet a brief because we have to be very productive. We're very good at being productive, but the whole intent of the fellowship is to invest in you, the artist, and follow that path wherever that needs to take you. And so as you can hear from all of our three panellists, taken on very different journeys and address very different needs in their career and their practice. I might just go to you, Liam, and just ask you to sort of perhaps talk about how you, the process of you putting together your application and how you were able to bubble up, I guess, that really key intent for you.
Sure. I guess my key intent straight up was to make more and pull myself straight up. And I had, gained a little bit of recognition through a few pieces of work, and it was absolutely the tip of the iceberg, and so
It was working.
Okay. And so I just really wanted to dive into that, and so that was kind of a catalyst of going into the applying for the fellowship. And so, and through that, I also got a few opportunities in, keeps going out, doesn't it? A few opportunities to exhibit, like one at UNSW Galleries with Jose. And so that was, springboarded those things. Process-wise, I thought I was going to make like huge, amazing work straight away with all the all my beautiful drawings and all those kind of things. And eventually it was a meeting with Jose, who was just kind of like, oh, you've just got to, looking at my work in the studio, just, trust your intuitions. There was a huge separation in my what was actually being produced rather than the idea. And so from that point, I mean, I still draw a fair amount anyway, but it just kind of started to, trust yourself. That's it.
And just to clarify, so Jose De Silva is the incredible curator and director at UNSW Galleries in Sydney, and he also happened to be the guest judge or guest panellist on the selection panel that selected Liam. And I just think that's also probably, it's a good point just to pick up on, I guess, from the very get-go. The process is intentionally national in its scope. So, of course, the curators and leadership team at the Art Gallery are always connecting with colleagues nationally and internationally, but we intentionally bring in an interstate curator into the panel in order to bring another lens and another perspective, which in pretty much all instances has helped to lead to other future opportunities for national exposure, which is a big push and a profile for us as partners in our commitment to South Australian practitioners to do the best we can for you through this project. Troy Anthony, would you like to comment a little bit about, what the genesis? Obviously, you talked about a particular critical moment in your practice that led you to the fellowship being the right thing right then. But would you mind talking a little bit about the process of you articulating that? Because I think that it's a difficult thing to talk about because it's such a personal, professional journey. And I'm very conscious it's easy to say when you see it in an application, you know it. And that's not necessarily easy for you guys when you're trying to write the applications. But I just think it'd be good to hear that from different members of this panel, just to maybe elucidate on that a little bit further.
Yeah, look, I know this is obviously it's going to be different for everybody. Everybody's, it's subjective, of course. But for me, and I guess it's in part being at a certain crossroad within my life, I really went intrapersonal. I went kind of, how could I looked at the application, certainly not like a grant application for a project or an award for my, work so far. It was, what is it about this that's going to help deal with something that was missing, whether that's internal, external, or both, and how to come up with some kind of strategy for that. So I know it's complex because it's also about the work, but it's allowing the work to kind of stand for itself, but still, from a personal position, being able to kind of analyse yourself, like, you know, and I said when we're kind of at mid-career, most of us, maybe not always, sometimes it's like, okay, well, what's missing here? What is it that people aren't getting about my work? What do I need to change anything? Or do I need something else? I soon realised I didn't really need to change everything because I already had everything there. I just needed to be more analytical and more able to show that to other people, to let them in, and ultimately do that through the work. You know, so really that was a revelation for me, that it was putting that into the writing, and I edited the crap out of that. Well, I really, really did. I just laid it again and again and again, and it coincided with the state that I was in, that this was a fight-flight moment. I had to express myself the absolute best way I could. And for me, that meant, you know, basically tearing my own hair out, getting the words absolutely right, because, you know, maybe like all of us, we want, you know, and this is an issue when we make subjective things like art, is that, you know, it's always interpretive and subjective. And it's like you need something else for it to be able to land for people, especially if you're doing something that you know, isn't particularly mainstream or isn't going to hang in people's houses necessarily, or whatever that may be. Or whether you focus on one thing that isn't so particularly popular. So it's almost like you need another language or a good support to be able to cut through. So yeah, I guess I use the application to do that, and in a sense to harness the writing to be exactly what I want it to be about, which ultimately allowed for the work to then speak for itself. I didn't kind of talk about my existing work with, you know, great detail, because I just choose particular ones where it was implied in the way I was writing that it was there. So I didn't have to say, hey, I'm a fabulous artist, which I do believe I am, pardon me, but, you know, like, I didn't need to say any of that stuff. I let the work, you know, almost say what the writing kind of, I let it be implicit.
And I think that's one of the really critical things that this fellowship is looking to achieve, and that obviously something that we're looking to see in applications is what is the potential for transformation for you? Not necessarily, transformation is not about changing, but impact, I guess, more so. And Sera, did you have anything you wanted to add to what sort of, in the vein that Troy Anthony was speaking, is there anything else you'd like to say to that?
Yeah, I would say I also edited the crap out of my writing. I probably spent months on it, really trying to, you know, I guess it was a good time as a mid-career artist to do an audit of what you've done and where you've been and maybe where the gaps are and how you might be able to address those gaps. So I was thinking, I don't know if you can hear me, is that working? Okay. I was just thinking in those bigger terms of this is what I've managed to do so far, and this is where I would like to go, and this is where I feel like as an artist I need to go, and this is my chance to do it. And I would say, you know, for everybody out there, my advice is that, you know, what you do with your practice is unique to you. And I always have this kind of motto, do what you do and do it well. And if you can really embrace your voice in that industry and what you're, you know, in our industry and what you're adding, and how that can be heightened or drawn out in whatever way in the direction you want to go, you know, really highlight that, because we all have that important contribution to make when we're given the opportunity to do so.
Very true. Anything else you'd like to say to that? No? I think the words mid-career have already been touched on several times, and I know that's quite a pointy, you know, subject matter, and I'm really keen for us to sort of delve in a little bit on that, because in this one intro we've heard about from an artist who's practiced for 30 years, another artist who's practiced for 11. Sera, how long have you been practicing for? 20. So it's not about length of time in the industry, I guess is perhaps what I might say. It's perhaps more about where you are in your own professional journey, is one way that you could put it. Now that also is very subjective, but it's how you talk about that in your application that's really critical. That's what's going to help the panel, who may or may not know your work, to understand where you are in your career journey and how this fellowship will help you in that mid-career phase. We recognise that there are lots of reasons why people's practices might stop and start, or might have a very slow and long and lengthy early stage. And likewise, sometimes we have students and applications from established artists who would really like a crack at that support also, but it is specifically set aside for people in their mid-career. So if anyone does have any other comments about mid-career practice that you'd like to speak to, please do say so, or anyone who has a question about that, very happy to have a bit of a dialogue. No? Okay. Anyone from the audience?
Yeah, what is mid-career?
So there used to be a very firm definition of what mid-career was. It was sort of defined by funding bodies, including the Australian Council for the Arts, as having been worked within the sector of, I think it was at the time, between 7 and 14 years or something, at a very narrow band. But it was also a presumption that people were working full-time in their practice from the minute they finished university, and that they had support and opportunities to exhibit in galleries. It also had implications of perhaps not acquired by state institutions, but might have had solo shows in various other small to medium organisations. Those sorts of linear pathways don't exist anymore. And in fact, I don't necessarily think that's a terrible thing. I actually think there's far more diversity, there's far more ways of experiencing and talking about practice now, and that's why there isn't a very clear definition. But I guess what the fellowship wanted to demarcate was that it wasn't about supporting people brand new and hot out of uni or art school, or establishing themselves through their own study and adventures. And it isn't about people at the end of their career who are investing, sort of in the glory days of their professional life, acknowledging fully that glory days doesn't necessarily mean lots of financial support, unfortunately. There's something about that middle stage, and that's also when the wheels sometimes fall off. It's where life gets really serious. Can I afford to keep going? Is this the path I want to invest in professionally? That's what this fellowship is all about. And it's about investing and seeing artists for the contribution that they make at this critical moment, and making sure that you see that it's valued and that it can continue. So how you enunciate that is entirely up to you, and it's a very personal story, and it's very relevant to your own professional journey. So, on to some other things. I think COVID just touched on in a couple of ways by both Sera and Troy Anthony Baylis. Maybe Liam's a little, you weren't necessarily an outlier in that. I think everyone's still affected by COVID. But when we first started the journey with the fellowship, when we started talking about it with the James and Diana Ramsay Foundation, Guildhouse and the Art Gallery, it was 2018. What was COVID? Who knew? And we actually really thought that for the most people, it would be about investing in some form of significant research, quite likely travel. We thought that would feature really heavily. And of course, some of you have. And Troy Anthony, well, maybe Troy Anthony, I won't speak for you. How about you talk about the focus in your travel to Berlin?
Yeah, well, the focus on the travel was, obviously I got to have that, but I guess on the downside, to just say that, I know I'm, lucky or whatever in terms of the travel, but it also meant when I had got to get my amazing show at AXA with a fantastic team, it meant that, for the opening, it was very limited. We had to sit on the, chairs separated. It was very early days in that COVID period. It meant I've got a longer show, but this thing that was in part meant to put the spotlight on, all the borders were closed. So the travel was, I guess it completely, I'd already been to the place where I travelled to, but it enabled me to be there for longer, to have a little bit more comfort. Of course, when we travel, it doesn't just, to spend money, you hemorrhage it, and, or it evaporates. And so, to have, to be able to build upon relationships I had already, it meant that I could stay a bit less, it wouldn't cost me as much. In fact, that's why I'm in Brisbane at the moment for 2 months, because I've got, a generosity of somebody who's like, you're an artist, have my house. These relationships are crucial for longer term practice, because we, usually we just can't afford to pay those sorts of things. It enabled me to have longer sustained networks, to build trust, it's not fly in, fly out. And I suppose in some weird way, it enabled me to come up with ideas for what became the exhibition that were already, in a sense, at my doorstep. It's interesting, sometimes it's just that inside-outside that you need to, for things to land.
And Sera, you, being an applicant in the 2020 period, international travel was definitely off the cards. But what was very compelling about your application from the minute we saw it was that it spoke about the journey of transformation that you could see ahead of you a fellowship from home. Would you mind talking a little bit about what that looked like from your perspective when you applied, but also as you went through that fellowship journey?
I think, as I said, I'd come out of the PhD where I had been fortunate enough to travel quite a bit with that. So I was at that point where I hadn't had the time at home to like really be in the studio and do that home-based research and work with collections. So I really pitched my application because I knew international travel wasn't on the cards, toward local collections, making contacts with local museums and spending time travelling within the state generally. I also pitched Zoom meetings with some people and collections interstate or internationally as well. So I was very, I guess, strategic, but it was truthful to my practice and what I was wanting to focus on at that particular time. And I think, using and community is a crucial part of textiles. So I really wanted to draw on my local people.
And Mike has been very patchy, so I don't know if people listening at home can hear anything that we're saying. Is it coming through okay?
When you talk.
Okay. I think, okay, well it's good. As long as we're getting some consistency, we'll do our best. You also had, Sera, you also had a regional tour of a really significant body of work happening around the same time you were intersected with the fellowship, did it not?
Yes.
Could you talk about that? Because I think that was it was a bit of a hot housing of exchange. You know, you were collaborating with others as part of the fellowship, and you were also sharing a lot of what you were learning and manifesting through the Future Traditions project in your activities.
Try this one.
All right, wish me luck. Yes, I had a touring show with Country Arts SA, which took me to seven different regional centres to show my exhibition, and it did coincide with the fellowship and the kind of research I was trying to do in local communities. And I got to make contact with the Embroiderers Guild in Port Pirie, who I'll give a shout out to, are a dynamic group. I ran workshops as part of the touring show, Domestic Arts, but then that built new networks and new communities for Future Traditions as well. So it did become a kind of a knotty, or a multi-thread. I'm trying to think of a metaphor. There's so many. There's so many. No, it was very rich.
Liam, I would love to ask you to talk a little bit about what you got out of what you have and continue to benefit from in regards to the engagement with the Art Gallery of South Australia, because of course the fellowship is some financial support, which has some various elements to it. There's a cash stipend. There's also the support to develop some other resources, whether that is like a video material, publication, critical writing, the publicity side. But I'd love for you to sort of maybe talk a little bit about what that has meant for you, and because I think it takes different shapes for each of the three artists here. And I know Tom's on a journey of working with our curatorial team led by Elle. So perhaps, yes, you'd like to dive in there.
The art gallery feels sometimes like that big institution over there where it's gated or something. I don't know. You don't really know how to get in a certain way.
We are actually really friendly.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
But that's truthful. I think what you're saying, Liam, is a really, really important observation, though, and I don't want to discredit it. So that was really quick. So keep going.
So I've been working with Rebecca Evans mostly on the project, and so it's started slow and it's petering up and it's feeling really fun and fantastic right now because we're not so far away from the whole install. Engaging with the works in the gallery and understanding and having lots of input from Lee Robb about I've selected only 5 works out of the collection to go alongside my work, and so having that open access is kind of what really exciting. And being able to, I guess for my work, I really wanted the context of my work to change. And so that, being able to choose paintings to go along and sit beside my work, hopefully, they're the things that I like to look at, and so then hopefully putting those in my work in that context, changes it. It's not a big scary place.
And we do have, such a phenomenally rich collection. It's 47,000 works, of which only, between 2 and 5% can ever be on display, just because of the sheer size of our gallery. And we work on many projects that take our works outside of the gallery. We have shows on tour at the moment, Kukukupu in Hodder in Queensland, and we also have works on display in regional South Australia, Naomi Hobson tour. So we do try and get our works out of the gallery as well, but that's such a wonderful opportunity. I'm glad you highlighted it, that the opportunity to work with a curator or a member of the art gallery curatorial team to sort of mine some of the depths of the collection that just may not be on display or easily accessible to you is something that's of great benefit. And it wasn't necessarily something that was critical to your application, but it's something that is something you've referred to and referenced, through media interviews and through the development of the body of work for installation, which is very exciting. It does go on display very soon, 1st of September. We're all very excited. Did a little walkthrough with the director and the curator yesterday to sort of see where the works are going to be. Very exciting.
Yeah, great.
I might ask you, Troy Anthony Baylis, to also speak about your experience of working with the Art Gallery of South Australia and sort of how that manifested, because obviously it was during COVID, so less person-to-person time, but a really, really deep installation period. I remember you being in the gallery a lot for an extended period of time, which was pretty extraordinary. Not many people were in the gallery. If I remember correctly, no one was in the gallery in the lead up to your show?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, certainly not very many. It was super limited numbers. And so the opening, I think we had 25 people, maybe it was 30, that were spaced apart.
Troy Anthony Baylis' show was the first show that was open to the public in South Australia, the first thing that was open to the public, because the art gallery opened before any of the other cultural institutions did, once that restriction was lifted.
But the answer to your question, I must say, working with and a little bit riffing off what Lee said, is that I know, look, it's not all about this, it's partly internal stuff, but it's that, I've seen the art gallery in very recent years have incredible public programs and having all sorts of things in there to make us artists feel welcome in the institution for our own state that we live in, which is great. So, but still, that doesn't make it any necessarily translate to not feeling welcome. I mean, that's on us, really. But yeah, so for me, it was also huge because I'd kind of given up on that type of idea about even having anything in these spaces. And, I wasn't angry or upset about it. I just got to come to terms with that. It's not really going to kind of happen there. Don't push it. Don't sort of feel like you're launching yourself at somebody, because you're not the best when you do that, or you feel like
yes.
So, I wasn't
networking 101, don't launch.
There's just a no. And, but working with a couple of people, particularly for me, besides, Emma and Debbie at Guildhouse at the time, it was working with Lee Robb, was amazing, and with Lisa Slade, and, just going to this first meeting, he said, I've got this idea, got that idea. It's like, great, let's do all of them. And then I had some others too, and then we couldn't quite do that in terms of, other things we wanted to do, but still it was like, yes, great idea, and it's like, oh, cool, I could just do this. And then they, did a little bit extra too, so there's I guess to compensate in part because of the times, I got a lovely little publication, really gorgeous and really useful because of it. People couldn't see it, so now I've got this. Well, I've ran out of them, but I think it's more in a cupboard there. I'd love to buy them back if I can. Anyway, so that was really useful. But more importantly, I suppose for me, it was working closely with the curator, which is it's a relationship. Like all relationships, and some of our work comes from sort of vulnerable places. Well, I guess they all are, for all of us. I mean, that it's sort of like a compensation for ourselves in some way, even if it's about other things. And so being able to work with people that you can have a trust with, and, it was, I just never feel boxed in by any of these institutions anymore at all. And it was really because of that experience. So,
really fabulous. Because you are presenting a pretty phenomenal show right now at QUT, right?
Yes, it's huge and it's great. You know, I'm very excited again. Because I've been living in Adelaide 23 years and I'm determined to keep living in Adelaide, but I must say it does feel, and it's also true, it's not just a feeling. I mean, it's a smaller economy, a smaller ecology, and it's certainly, you know, if there's this desire that this work has to be seen, Adelaide is just not big enough. And so, you know, I am fortunate in that way that I've spent years kind of gradually building relationships, and now I'm able to now, fulfill these relationships a lot better than I could before, and I'm much more confident. I've got a buzz in my step. Not that I really knock on too many doors, but I mean, I could meet anybody at all. And while I have been here, I have met all sorts of people from, you know, whether they've been ex-governors of Australia or vice chancellors of universities, and I'm doing public talking and even some TV and all these things I never thought I would be able to do. And I think it did kind of come from that, I guess, that experience of being with some professionals, even though I've been a professional before anyway, as an arts administrator, curator and stuff. But I and I know I'm not, but there's no imposter syndrome whatsoever anymore. It's that point of, you know, being this, no, I'm going to be my full potential. I'm not going to let, you know, these things block me anymore. And it's okay to let the light shine onto your work. It's okay to live your dream, and I'm not ruining anybody else's dream by doing that. And I'm still with as much care as it always has been. You know, it's been quite a huge thing for me.
Thank you. I just came from another talk. Part of the reason I was a few minutes late is that I just came from another talk at the art gallery actually, and it was a really fabulous session with a group of professionals from all different disciplines. There was 45 people in the room, and we were talking about a whole range of things. We're sitting in the Chiara shelter room, and one of the most beautiful things that was shared by my colleagues was that they want to be led by artists in the projects, the way that we work. And I think for a state institution to shift to a model where we are putting and centering the artists first in those conversations is where really, really exciting work happens. And that can happen with artists who are with us in person. They can be artists who passed away, but it's even more powerful, of course, when you're living, breathing, and in the room, helping to shape that outcome. And I think that's something that I'd like to I'm conscious of time and I want people to be able to ask questions, but I know the presentation outcome at AXA is a really critical component of interest for people when they're thinking about applying for the fellowship. And I'd like to address it head on, because I think people often, or it seems to me, having read a lot of fellowship applications, and I have read hundreds, that the presentation outcome is quite a central focus for many applicants. It's sort of front and centre, almost to the detriment of your own practice. And I just wanted to touch on the presentation outcome so that we can talk a little bit about the breadth of possibilities there, but also encourage you not to spend too much time focusing on what you think it's going to look like, what you think it's going to manifest as, because I can tell you from working with every single one of these artists that it's evolved a lot over the course of their journey in the fellowship itself. So I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit, Sera, about the presentation that you had at AXA earlier this year and how that sort of took place for you. And even, you know, I guess you would have heard from everyone that they've collaborated with different curators in the art gallery, and that's quite an intentional thing. Obviously, we have a curator of contemporary art, Lee Robb, who works with a lot of living artists, but for many of our curators, it's a wonderful opportunity for them to build those relationships and to have those opportunities too. So we benefit very much so through the process. Sera, would you like to say some things about that?
Yeah, I was so fortunate to. Doesn't like me, this microphone.
Okay,
let's try again. I was so fortunate to work with Maria Zagala as my lead curator, and we kind of, you know, I guess came together towards the end of the journey because my journey was so long. So I never, in my application, didn't set out saying I want to create this kind of wunderkammer room that it ended up being, but it was driven by the research and the work, and the ideas kind of evolved into that outcome. And as I had conversations along the way, you know, it started to take shape, and I'm, you know, so grateful to the art gallery for accommodating my I thought I'm just going to go for broke, ask for those, that one space that was like an intimate space, and they said, yeah, we can do it. So it was really, really exciting to not only kind of realise that vision, but also work so closely with Maria to realise that in a collaborative way. So it wasn't. It was led by me, and I would say it very much had my voice, and I'm very grateful that she honoured that. But it was also, I learned so much, like Joy Anthony was saying, that was really beautiful. Gave me goosebumps just to see that, when you really lean into your voice and when you're supported by such a professional team at that presentation level at the end of a period of research, what can be realised together, and the kind of stepping up that can do for the way that you think about your practice.
Beautiful. And so, we've got very different experiences of Troy Anthony Baylis presenting vinyl works, vinyl reproductions of works of art in the main thoroughfare of the gallery, actually in the restaurant space, which was incredible, as well as key works that filled the vestibule, our front entrance on North Terrace. Sera had a dedicated gallery space, which was quite intimate, darkened space, which was very contemplative and very rich, with a very deep hang that referenced collections from not just the art galleries of Australia, but from various other state institutions and collections, including some private collections as well, I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
and Migration Museum.
And Migration Museum. And of course, Liam's work will be presented, as he is indicated, in the context of a number of works from the gallery's collection that spans different practice areas, material forms, painting, and other. So it's very, very varied, and the brief when we set out to establish the fellowship is intentionally open, because a performance work might evolve, a major event, a collaborative public program with the community might be the presentation outcome. It may not be an exhibition, I guess, is my point, and that is something that is shaped throughout the research phase of your fellowship, not when you apply. Does anyone have any questions about that that you'd like to ask? And it's okay to ask. Everyone's got individual applications. No one's going to steal your idea. It's okay. Claire.
Is it important for your application that you are accessing part of the art gallery's collection?
Not at all.
Okay.
No,
I just noticed that you've all done.
I think it wasn't necessarily even front and centre. Like, I don't really remember Liam's application, you even really articulating an intention to mine the collection. Is that right?
No, yeah. No, not at all.
And yet it's something that kind of emerged or evolved throughout that process. Yeah. Anyone else? Have you got any other questions that you would like to ask? Oh, yes, sorry, Sam.
The application asks you to talk to the activity you propose, keeping that in mind if you're wanting to be research led, and open.
Mm-hmm.
How, not necessarily how to write that, but how did you all experience in writing your applications that kind of component?
The research part. Activity.
Yeah, what activity do you propose to?
Make work. For me, that was it. That's all I wanted to do, and so it was through the opportunity, say, for exploring the collection that kind of, I was like, oh well, how can I not want to do that? That sounds so exciting to go through all these things.
Are about your practice, and so it's not something that you can necessarily lift from someone else's idea, but it's shone off the page immediately. Any other questions for me or for any of the panelists? Yes.
Just wondering how if you experienced imposter syndrome while writing your pieces, and how you tackled that as you worked through your process.
Good question.
Not while writing. It was kind of halfway through, and then I was like, oh, I don't know, what am I doing?
Also new dad, can I just say, you're very sleep deprived for a bit there.
Yeah, still. But no, one moment for me was when I got the letter from the art gallery about the actual show, and it was in writing and all these things. And that was the moment in the studio that I almost cried. I did. And it was just like, oh yeah, okay, no, this is the real deal. Like, even though I was quite a few months into the process. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. It's a good question, I think. It's that self-confidence. My advice is sometimes the more I write into it and keep arguing with myself, that's how you can get over the imposter syndrome. You know, you kind of keep writing and editing and refining and getting it to a position where you think, oh, this is something. Yes, this is who I am as an artist. So I think that keeping on going. And, you know, this is a different situation, but a long time ago, I half filled out an application to do something in Germany, actually, and I thought, this is ridiculous. And I let it go, and they contacted me and said, would you finish your application? And I was so embarrassed. I'd left a half-finished application floating out there, and I finished it, and I got in. So that to me was a learning opportunity. Just go for it, just put it out there.
Absolutely, and I think that is a really good segue into talking about your references. What are we calling them? Letters of support. Yeah, sorry, losing my vernacular. And so think strategically about those people. They are part of your application. They're the voices that speak to you, for you in your practice, or where you might be, or how powerful this is. So think really meaningfully about the conversations you're having with those people who are putting in those letters of support for you, so that they really understand what you want to achieve as well. Have good conversations with them, I guess, is not everyone has the extraordinary skills of writing, and I want to be really honest about that. Some people, it's not their number one strength. So don't be afraid to swap skills with someone else, ask someone to collaborate with you, share, ask a writer friend, dial in a friend from somewhere else. I know I was very good at doing that, skill swaps. So don't be afraid to do that. Don't let that stand in the way of you putting in an application, because it doesn't have to be flowery. It has to be truthful. And I think your letters of support really add a lot of substance to your application.
Yes, I think even can you hear me? Yes, like even the letters of support even, and you know, I know I'm probably already preaching to the convert already, but they can say things that you haven't been able to quite fit into your application. Like, use every word you've got strategically.
Well said. Anything else? Any other questions? Yes.
I have a question. So you talked about transformation in terms of the fellowship, and I just wondered in terms of supplying images to accompany the application, but with a view to, you know, where you want to go in your practice, and that might be like Troy's been using the word internal a lot. You know, you might have a kind of deep internal guiding sense of I can see it, you know, and I'm just wondering about bridging that with the application.
It's such a good question, and I think that really think long and hard about the images you choose. It doesn't have to be a historical summary of every work that you've made. I know that you know this, but remembering that some of the panellists may not have ever seen your work before, so only put the work forward that you feel really compellingly speaks to where you want to go from here, so where you are now, where you want to go. And that might be that you are using your words to describe where you want to take yourself, but you know, I have seen examples people have included sketches. That might be something you want to do. I mean, if that's right for your application, go for it, but just know that sometimes some judges, and everyone has a different process with assessing applications, of course they'll read it, but a lot of people are visual people and they'll look at the images first. So just bear that in mind. The images you choose, the first few images that someone sees of your practice is really critical when you're submitting any application. I think the panel has said it really beautifully. Just use everything you've got wisely in terms of rigour. And if you want another set of eyes over it, that's, you know, obviously Sam's there to guide. But you can also collaborate with other people and get someone else to look at it and give you really critical feedback if you do need to bounce it off someone else before you submit.
Fireworks, sorry.
You okay?
Yeah, I heard this banging noise. I'm in a library at the moment. It's fireworks, I think. It's all right.
Oh, wow. We'll send some SOS. Is there an alarm going off? Oh, it's gone. Okay. Hopefully he's okay. Anyone else have a question? Yes, Sam?
Can you all talk to your budget, your experiences with your budget for the fellowship, and, you know, as much detail or little detail as you'd like? I mean, the
I spend a lot of money on making things. That's what supported it.
Yeah,
Like
is
that
it
was
about,
it.
like living allowance or like food
Yeah, sure.
materials or
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
talk more to the.
I still worked a day or two a week for other people, absolutely, to do those things. But yeah, most of it went to materials, a bit to equipment, and yeah, that's about, yeah, but I mean, the glass blowing expenses are rather large, so like, it mostly went to that.
Sam, just wanted to, is there anything that you'd like to say to the budget side of things at this point? Just because things do evolve, we want to make sure that we're giving the right advice.
That's true.
Cool. Thank you, yeah. So that you don't need to provide a budget for your application, and there is a commitment. There's of the $50,000, there's 35 that's committed to the artist. It's the stipend, so that's the fortnightly or monthly payment that's sent to you. What you do with that, whether that's for you to use as time as an artist fee to pay yourself a wage, or whether that, or like Liam did, whether you use that for materials and other things, or to, that's up to you. The contract's set, you get the money at the end. And then there's some of that value of $50,000 is around what both partners offer in kind. So the art gallery give graphic design, and that's not a fee, that's just in there. And then there's an amount that is given to the presentation. So whether that's if you want to do a catalogue, if you want to do a video, if you want to make plinths, and all of that can be negotiated. Once you start looking at and realising this is what I kind of want to do, what have we got to work with, and that's when it can shift and change. So it's not locked in, that last part of the money, but the very most part of it is to pay the artist. And what you do with that is up to you, and you don't have to tell us, and you don't have to justify it. If you've got it, you've got it. That's it.
I think that's just an important point to make. So I think that's a big distinction between like a project grant and the fellowship application. Is that another question from you at the back?
Yeah, you say that people from college and artists that have got art background, what about outside artists? Can they?
Yeah, there is no limit on having to have a certain level of tertiary education or, no, that's not part of the selection criteria. It is about people who are professional practicing artists in their own practice, so not by definition of qualification. Yeah. Great.
You'd have to, sorry to butt in. I guess you'd have to, have a demonstrated practice, like a continuing practice.
That's right. It is intended for professional practicing artists. It's not open to hobbyists or other sorts of creative makers sort of on the periphery. Are there any other questions that people would like to ask before I hand back over to Sera? All right, bring your hand, Sera.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much for listening so intently, and really grateful thanks to Sera, Liam, Troy Anthony, and to Emma for sharing such deep, thoughtful and inspiring content. We are just so excited that you're all excited about this opportunity, and I just wanted to recap. Applications are open till the 21st of August. Please reach out to Sam with any further questions, queries, book in, come and spend the time to have someone to reflect and to assist, as well as working with your wider network. The selection panel will then will be convened shortly, and we'll review the applications in September with a view for the announcement of the very fortunate recipient of the 2023 Guildhouse Fellowship in October. I also just wanted to let you know, seeing we've got this wonderful captive audience here in front, that Guildhouse's Catapult mentorship program is also open at the moment till with applications closing on the 11th of September. Please reach out to talk to us or to share that opportunity wider with your network. And equally, Nicola over here is available to connect and talk with online or by phone if you've got interest in that program. Thank you again for coming out on this stormy night. Many thanks, Troy, for joining us from so far away. And
You're all amazing. You're so talented, and we are inspired by you every day. And the partners in terms of wanting to be led by your inspiration and make your careers a success. Thank you. Come and eat some nibbles. Bye, Troy. See you when you get back.
All the best, good luck if you go for it.
Yay, thank you.